Is this truly the first time I've done an Ardbeg Committee release on this channel? Because that's kind of crazy. I know I've done a few of them on the Wheel of Doom there. I did the committee release of the black... I'm leaving that in there. I saw this bottle just last weekend, and I was at a whiskey event. Basically, it's one of those kind where when you're a frequent buyer, they'll punch a card, and you can use that card to redeem for some allocated items. And this was a big event. There were hundreds of people there, and I got in, and I saw this, and I saw another Ardbeg that I ended up getting, and then I ended up buying a Weller Antique just because there were a lot of them. In the case of the Heavy Vapors, I was excited because I knew I hadn't done a committee release on this channel, and I really wanted to kind of just get into it and try something brand new with you guys, do some actual nosing and tasting that isn't just everywhere already, and see what we get. So, when we talk about the Heavy Vapors, there's a reason that it has a name, but let's first talk about the last few years of Ardbeg. So, they have been releasing these committee releases or these special releases every year for a very long time, and you've had things like the Alligator, I think that was what it was called. It was like the Alligator Char one. And then you had Kelpie, you had Supernova, you had Dark Cove, like some legendary whiskey. Some of the best Ardbegs that I've ever tasted. And then you have things like the Drum, which was okay. Scorch, you have, again, Black. You have Ardbeg, a bunch of other ones. But most of them feel a little gimmicky, right? So if you think about the fermentation, they just left it to ferment for 3 weeks, which is incredibly long, don't get me wrong. But it was because the boiler blew, or at least that's the story that they put out there. I imagine that they could have fixed it, but when Dr. Bill throws an idea out there like, let's just let it sit, you kind of just do it. And usually he's got a pretty good, forgive the term, he's got a good nose for this stuff. But then he does Ardcore, where he's just like, well, let's just burn the heck out of the barley. And sure, why not? It was okay. It was actually totally fine. I want them to be more creative. When you think about the word Kelpie, like that is like a mythological creature. When you think about Heavy Vapors, they're talking about, oh, whoops, the purifier was not there, or we left it, we took it off. They don't go too much into the situation, but if you look at what an actual still looks like, the purifier is used to kind of add additional reflux so that the heavy compounds will gather and then they'll go back into the still to kind of get reboiled, and it removes a lot of these heavier compounds, so you don't get a lot of like the sulfur or just those, some of the less desirable traits. But they removed that, and then they made this whiskey. And everything about that actually sounds very exciting to me, except for there's no cool story behind it, I guess. I don't know. I guess maybe I just like a really fantastical story with my Ardbegs, especially when they're doing things like these special yearly releases. Anyway, that's my take on the concept, but let's see what's in the actual whiskey. Now, this is a 50.2% ABV. It is almost entirely clear. Look at that color. And I'll hold up the 10 and the, actually I'll just do that now. So this is the 10, and then this is the Heavy Vapors. They're very similar, but the Heavy Vapors is a little clearer. Now, to give you one more comparison, this is the Wee Beastie, which is quite a bit darker. So I'm gonna have both the 10 and the Wee Beastie after taking a couple of sips of this, so that we can do a little comparison, because my first impression of drinking this was that it was very similar to one, if not both of those, and they're both kind of different. So we'll figure that out on this video here together. So it's 50.2% ABV, obviously non-filled filtered. It's about $170, and that's about it. Obviously malted barley. The main gimmick here is that they were making whiskey and they left off the purifier. So let's just go right into the nosing and the tasting. Now, the smell on this one's interesting. It's very much what you would expect to smell on, say, the 10. So much so that it's like, is that just the 10? But when you think about this purifier being gone and these heavier compounds making their way into the whiskey, whereas in other words, they would have been probably cut with the tails, it is strange that there aren't more like sulfur notes on the nose here, or more just an astringentness. I would expect this to be not a great nose based off what they say happened with it. But instead it actually smells very crisp and very clear. It smells like sea salt, it smells like lemon zest, which are both very common in Ardbeg, but there's very little in the way of smoke on the nose here. And I take that back, actually. Maybe I just didn't get it on the first nose here, but the smoke is there. What it's representing more, though, is almost like an iodine rather than a smoke, or it's like the smoke mixing with the salt is creating kind of an iodine nose. Smells a little bit earthy as well, but overall, the nose on this is not super complex. It's very basic, I would actually say, but not unpleasant, which I was expecting. So let's go ahead and have a taste. Cheers. I actually just donated blood about 2 hours ago, so hopefully this doesn't hit too hard. Okay, this is where it's varying quite a bit from the taste. It's dirty, like dirt, in a good way. So when I taste this here, the first thing I'm getting is overwhelmingly salty, a hint of lemon, but then just a subtle smoke, but then just this extremely earthy flavor. And I'm trying to think of another whiskey I could compare this taste to. So, or even just a general flavor that I could compare that to. It's like, you know how people sometimes they'll joke about Ardbeg tasting or smelling like a tire that's on fire? It's a little bit of that. I realize I'm getting away from that earthiness. I'm more just trying to place this flavor. It does taste like smoke that you don't want to breathe in. And for me in Ardbeg, like, I will breathe in all of this stuff. So this is an interesting one. But the flavor here is a little bit reminiscent of the Wee Beastie. And maybe this is just not super old, especially given the color. Maybe it hasn't been sitting in a barrel for too long. There's a youngness to this. It's still a bit aggressive. It's not unpleasant though. Now, I got this bottle, today is Friday. This is almost half gone. I've had it less than a week. I ended up drinking it on a stream the other night, and I drank like 3 or 4 of them, and it was enjoyable. But let's kind of get down to brass tacks here, though. This is $170. For a no-age statement, Ardbeg, that is committee release, so let's factor in all the different variables here. And the price point, I think, is still way too high. At $170, I guess I look at this as the following, right? They didn't put an age statement on here, so I can only guess. I do not think this is 10 years old. I think it's probably closer to like 8. But given that thought, you're not paying for the storage fees, is kind of like what I like to think about how you get to the price. What you are getting instead is the name, the committee release, and the exclusivity. And that's not worth $170 to me. What I would think would be a more realistic price for this would be closer to like $120. Again, just for the exclusivity. Because I'm comparing it to, like, I would have Corey reckon 10 out of 10 times over this, right? And that's about 90, right? So if you tack on a little exclusivity and whatever else marketing, you're basically just giving me a product that wasn't made correctly for $170. Is it interesting? Sure. Would I drink this again if I saw it on somebody else's shelf and I had only tried it at a tasting or something? Probably. I mean, mostly because I love Ardbeg, though. But would I recommend that you buy this for $170? Personally, no. But let's do one more quick little experiment before I give that my final stamp. But at the moment, I'm feeling like this was a bit of a ripoff, if not a fun experience. So I first tried this and I thought to myself, boy, this tastes an awful lot like the Ardbeg 10. I could be totally wrong. I will actually say, despite the fact that I do whiskey reviews, I do not have the most refined palate, as is evidenced by the Matt Madness competition somewhat recently. So I'm going to just go off my memory here rather than anything else. And let's see what it tastes like compared to the 10. So cheers. Okay, so with the 10, there is a fuller flavor with the 10, although a bit more simple. The 10, even at a lower ABV, feels more viscous, feels more full. It's like a heavier flavor in a good way. This does taste thinner compared to that, even at a higher ABV. Now let's go one more step further, and let's go with the Wee Beastie here. I'll just do that. So on the Wee Beastie, I remember this one tastes a lot more like barbecue smoke rather than peat smoke. So let's see if that holds up. Yeah, it's not like the Wee Beastie at all. So that's good, because I kind of didn't think it was. I saw, as I was doing some research today, I saw some people comparing it to the Wee Beastie. I just flat out disagree. The Wee Beastie has way more flavor. This one is a bit more delicate. I kind of already gave you my notes. What's really putting me off here is not just the price, because I realize I focus on that a lot, but I think maybe that's why this channel tends to appeal to people who are really just getting into it. I just don't see this one as interesting, especially given the price. But like, I just don't think it's interesting. It's slightly different than the 10, and it's just, I don't know. I don't see this one becoming part of the core range. So let's just leave it at that. All right, anyway, I do not suggest that you get this one. If you get a chance to try it, go for it. So I'll give it a try it, but that's totally just for the sake of, I still totally believe in Ardbeg despite being hurt so many times. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me here on the Whiskey Dictionary. Pretty soon, we're going to be doing a vertical of the Redbreast whole range. It's going to be awesome. Might be next week, might be the following week, but we'll see. I just picked up the 21 and I kind of want to spend some time with it before I do the video. So I hope you guys all have a great rest of your week and have a great night. Cheers.